Welcome back to another episode of the House of Hoosier podcast presented by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. I'm Ian Plaskoff, joined by Noah Gerkey as always. And this time around, it just feels like the vibes are a little bit worse than they have been before because Indiana's in that pivotal stretch of tough games, and you'd hope that they'd pull out a couple of them or at least look good. That has not been the case. Back-to-back losses to Nebraska and Michigan State. Nebraska at home, Michigan State on the road, both fueled by no other way to put it, but terrible second half performances in both games. And we're here to talk about it because this is a make or break stretch of Indiana season. And right now it's not looking great.
It doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good either. Watching those games, you were obviously at Michigan State. You got a chance to watch a little bit of the Nebraska game as well. Also watch Michigan State. It's just frustrating because it felt like the ghost of IU basketball past came back, especially that Nebraska game. They got out to the lead. I think they were up 16 with like 16 minutes left. Ended up losing the game at home. Feels like something that's been done a little bit over the past few years. Michigan State hanging with them on the road, and then they ended up, I think it was what, a 19 nothing run, then it ballooned to like 26-2 maybe. Just it feels like this is IU basketball that we've been used to watching. And going into the year, it was new dynamic, new team, fun shooting, modern. Maybe they won't be able to lose some of these leads. It'll be interesting, and it is interesting. And now it's sort of turning into what we maybe have gotten used to.
The glaring issues that we expected to see a little bit of in Big Ten play earlier in the season are showing pretty clearly, especially against Michigan State. The rebounding numbers. It was fine against Nebraska, but Nebraska's not a team that is built super big and super physical to rebound that well. But Indiana was out rebounded in the second half against Michigan State 21-7. The paint presence was non-existent. It felt like every time the ball entered the paint, either Reed Bailey was going to miss a layup or Sam Alexis, who really didn't, he only took five shots. I mean, Bailey only took three. There was just nothing happening inside. Um, and it's as simple again as when this team doesn't shoot the ball as well as it needs to, it's not going to go well. And back-to-back games against Nebraska and Michigan State where that's been the case.
Another one of the glaring issues that wasn't an issue at the beginning is the turnovers. Towards the beginning of the year, this team really didn't turn the basketball over. They had high assist numbers. They're now tied for seventh in the Big Ten with around 11 turnovers a game, back-to-back games with 14. And the reason it's maybe frustrating for fans, and especially for those maybe who have been used to seeing this is a veteran group. They haven't played a lot together, but they're older players. They have had 3, 4, maybe even 5 years of college basketball experience on the floor, and they're still so careless with the basketball at times. The basketball is the most important thing on the floor. That's how you score points. It's how the entire game is facilitated. And over the last few games, they've just been really loose with the basketball. And that's something you wouldn't expect from a veteran group.
Yeah, it really it a lot of it like the first halves were okay to be fully honest in these last two games. Against Nebraska, Indiana had a lead at halftime 39-30. At Michigan State, you expect to be down a little bit at halftime. And they were down 7, 39-32. But these second half performances where everything really piled on. It was the rebounding that struggled, turnovers, missed shots, and they weren't just turnovers, they were live ball turnovers. Um, and Michigan State did whatever it wanted, as did Nebraska. Nebraska scored 53 in the second half. Michigan State scored 42, I believe. Um, and that 26-2 run just defined what it's felt like to watch Indiana basketball for the past few games. It's just not pretty. It's not what it was at the beginning portion of the season.
The 19-0 Michigan State run, Indiana had how many rebounds, if you had to guess, during the 11-minute stretch? How many
I'm thinking
rebounds do you think Indiana
three or
had?
four,
No, one.
not one.
One live ball rebound over the span of 7 minutes of action. In like 11 minutes in the second half, they didn't have a rebound. In the span of the 12 and a half minute mark to the 1 minute mark, they had one rebound. Didn't have one in that stretch. One rebound during the 19-0 run. We talked at the beginning of the year. The roster is not built to be against big teams and to rebound the basketball well. It's not. It's built to shoot, spread people out on the perimeter, and be able to put up a bunch of points. In back-to-back games, the shots haven't necessarily been falling from three. They have for one guy, Lamar Wilkerson, but right now it seems like he's the only offensive player they really have a reliable chance of going to.
Yeah, it really has felt like everybody else has been a non-factor other than Wilkerson.
We talked at the beginning of the year how many ways Indiana can hurt you too. Tucker DeVries was shooting the ball well. We'll talk about his numbers in a second. Tate Connery can get you to the rim. Nick Dorn's another shooting threat. Sam Alexis looked good down low. Reed Bailey had shown flashes. And over the last, what, 4 games outside of Connery's 20 against Washington, which really all came in the first 5 minutes, it's been Lamar Wilkerson and everybody else.
Yeah, that was evident against Michigan State. I mean, Wilkerson had 19, DeVries had 9, and then nobody else had more than 6. And DeVries had 9 on 3 of 10 shooting, 1 of 7 from 3. So it's not a good looking 9. Um, and then you look over on the other side of the board on Michigan State, and you see Jeremy Fears Jr. with 23 and 10 assists on 8 of 14 shooting. Jackson Kohler had 16 on 5 of 9. Kurtang had 11. Uh, Jordan Scott had 11. And then they had a couple guys with some role player points. Like this team needs that. They don't have that anymore. They did at the beginning of the season with DeVries and Wilkerson and Connerway when he was playing well. But it just feels like Wilkerson right now and then a bunch of role players. There's no secondary option like Michigan State had with Kohler or with Tang or Scott or really anybody there.
Even in Nebraska, Lamar had 32 and the rest of the team had 45 points. The rest of the team had 45 points. I get there was foul trouble and all that stuff. You got to find a way to score the ball. You have to have other people on the floor that can score. And in Tucker DeVries' case, we've looked back now to the Kentucky game. He's 11 for his last 54 from three. Whether that's a shooting slump, whether that's people scouting him out the right way, this guy's going to look to shoot the basketball off the catch. He's going to hunt his shots. They haven't been falling. He's still taking those shots. The averages keep going down. You get into the Big Ten, where this is one of the best coached leagues in the country. Teams know how to scout. Teams know how to game plan. Teams know how to in-game adjust. And Indiana can't make the adjustments to combat the adjustments other teams make. If Tucker DeVries is getting face guarded, you have to find another way to score the basketball outside of Lamar Wilkerson. Because guess who's also going to get face guarded? The guy who's had 20 plus in each of the last 5 games or so with 19 against Michigan State. Who's going to step up? How are they going to find a game plan to resolve around somebody else when Lamar Wilkerson is getting guarded the way he is? Because it hasn't been Tucker DeVries.
Yeah, DeVries, like it looks like he hasn't been able to beat anybody off the dribble. He hasn't been able to do anything other than catch and shoot or maybe take one dribble in space and put it up. Like it's not as fluid of an offense as it was at the beginning of the season. But I'll put that question right back at you. If they're both getting face guarded, what do you do? Because really, nobody else on this roster, maybe other than Connerway, but nobody on a consistent basis has shown they can step up into that bigger role.
Wish I had an answer for you. I do. When we looked at the roster construction, there's so many guys that can stretch the floor and shoot. And now they're in a place where if their top two guys get scouted, they don't have a true distributor. Connor Enright can get the basketball out. He's got a pretty good assist to turnover ratio. Connery gets to the rim. He's not sometimes a little bit out of control, but he's been pretty good at distributing too. He had 9 assists against Michigan State. I don't know what you do. I don't know who you turn to because there's not one guy in the basket outside of maybe Lamar Wilkerson that you can say, go get a basket for us. There's not one person on the team that you can hand the ball to in a half court set and say, get yourself open for a shot. There's nobody. It's just him. And he's been elite this year, shooting 46% from the field, averaging 20 points. I think he's at like 42% from three this year. He has been unbelievable. And sadly, over the last few games, he's been finding ways to beat the defense, but nobody else on the floor is seeming to be able to find a way to get the offense involved.
It feels like everybody's so one-dimensional. Like you'll see Enright running around the floor and distributing the ball. He doesn't really do much else other than an open three every now and then. Connerway will cut to the rim more than anybody or pass. DeVries will shoot on the catch and shoot or on the move or curl or whatever. Nick Dorn will just hit corner threes off the catch. Trent Sisley will drive to the rim, I would say occasionally, and then the occasional corner three. And Reed Bailey and Sam Alexis just kind of wait in the paint and don't really do much else offensively. With a team built like this, I would expect a little more multi-dimensionality to every player's game, at least on the floor. I know they have it, they just don't display it in game, but I would expect a little more of that with how much athleticism is on this team. But everybody just feels like they have their role and they don't switch from that, if that makes sense.
It comes to a point, and they always make this, at least in my playing experience, coaches make it known you can have set plays or set roles and still be a basketball player and adjust. If the play is to run all the way to the corner, but the defender shades that corner, you just stay in the paint. You take your layup and you lay it in. With the amount of basketball these guys have played, there doesn't seem to be an adjustment phase at all. They're allowed to shoot a bunch of threes. They're allowed to drive to the rim and kick and shoot a bunch of threes. They're allowed to play pretty loose on the offensive end, but there's no adjustment. If we're not making threes, guess what? That's what we're supposed to be doing. We're going to keep shooting threes. There's no other alternate angle. There's no other style of play that this team can adjust to, or at least has shown to help them be successful on the offensive end of the floor. I can argue the defense hasn't looked too terrible. They had a bad second half against Nebraska and a bad second half against Michigan State. Defense hasn't been that bad. It's really just been the lingering offensive issues in those spurts.
And you evaluate this team is now 3-3 in the Big Ten, with wins over Washington, with a win over Maryland, and with a win over Penn State. Losses to Nebraska, Michigan State, and um, why am I blanking on the other one?
Um, Michigan State, Nebraska, and Minnesota.
There it is, Minnesota, who actually has looked pretty solid. This is a team that's fairly expected to be in the middle ground, and you need these games to go your way. You're expected to win a game or two that you shouldn't win, and lose a game or two that you shouldn't lose. But right now, this team is winning all the games it's supposed to win and losing all the games that it's supposed to lose. But that's not a recipe for a resume. If you're just like the schedule's going to get tougher and tougher, and there are going to be more and more of those games where you are supposed to lose. And Indiana has not proven that it can overcome those games. And
We
that is where
talked
I bring in a little worry. Is that sure they can beat up on bad teams, but that's not how you are successful in college basketball.
we talked, I think it was last episode, about how I looked at the perspective of you like some of these games being at home. That being Nebraska, that being Iowa, and not having to go play on the road at those places in comparison to just chalking up a loss to a Michigan State or a Michigan. They had it teed up there with Nebraska. They had their opportunity. They haven't had a quad one win all year, had their opportunity, and they let it slip. They have a chance against Iowa. We'll see what they do. They were right in the game at Michigan State, and there's always the saying of no, let a team hang around, they start to get a belief. And it honestly, watching that game seemed like Indiana, the longer they hung around, the more it felt like, okay, when are the floodgates going to burst? It didn't feel like maybe this team could steal a win. It felt like somehow, some way, they're going to find a way to lose the basketball game. And so you look at their stretch coming up, and you're right. You can't afford to just only win the games you're supposed to and lose the games you're supposed to because right now this team is not good enough to beat some of the top teams in the conference consistently, and there are less games that you're penciled in to win. We went through the schedule, I think it was yesterday before class, and there are maybe 5 or 6 games you can confidently say that you think Indiana wins. And there are a few toss-ups, and there are a few that you probably mark up as a loss. But 5 more wins the rest of the year leaves you at 17 wins. And that doesn't get you into the tournament. 18 wins probably doesn't get you in the tournament. So they're gonna have to do some deep diving, find something else, and they're gonna have to flip a switch when it comes to these bigger games because they've got a lot of them coming up.
Yeah, you look at the net ranking, and Indiana's 7-0 against quad four teams, 4-0 in quad three games, 1-1 in quad two, and 0-4 in quad one. Eerily similar to last year, the year before, the year before, you know what I mean? Like the scheduling philosophy we thought would be different, it'd be more beneficial. No. Win all the games you're supposed to win and drop the games that could be a big opportunity to build a resume.
And now you look, and they've got Iowa and Michigan. Iowa's not a bad basketball team. They're a quad one team. They're not ranked right now, but they're 12 and 5. They took Purdue down to the wire. They've taken Iowa State down to the wire. They've lost three in a row, all three being close, including a loss to Minnesota, who actually, we mentioned, looked pretty good so far of recent. And then you got Michigan, who looks like one of the best teams in college basketball, and they have the entire year outside of their loss to Wisconsin. And it doesn't get much easier from there. You would think in the next four games, they've got Iowa, Michigan, Rutgers, and Purdue. How many do you have to win to feel confident going forward? Two?
I would like to say three, but that could be a little selfish of me, but I'm going to say three.
They would have to win three games to feel confident the rest of the way.
I think so because I think they drop some in the back half.
I think they do too. But if you look at it, where are those three coming from? Are you going to the Chrysler Center and beating Michigan? Are you beating Rutgers on Rutgers is not a great basketball team. I'll flat out say it. They're not very good. Indiana doesn't win at the rack. They don't.
I think
Iowa,
I think they can.
I think they can too. Iowa traditionally gives Indiana problems. And then you're looking at Purdue at home, which is probably going to be a crazy atmosphere like it always is. It's Purdue. And honestly, if you only get two of those games and those two are Iowa at home and a nail biter, and then you beat Rutgers, you have one quad one win. And then you look at the rest of your schedule and you still haven't beaten a ranked opponent. And that is worrisome. That is concerning with the schedule they have in the back half.
That's why I say three. I think you need to win those two games and then win. I mean, the most likely option is Purdue at home, just because it's at home. Some of that, this is another interesting wrinkle there. Um, that Purdue home game is the first game after Indiana football plays in the national championship. So, hypothetically, if Indiana wins and they bring the team out and they're saying Indiana football is going to be at this game, that atmosphere will be tough. Tougher than it already would be. But
I
that's
think
all
that,
hypothetical.
yeah, I think that game becomes even more important because I honestly think that's probably the first game IU basketball fans pay attention to. And I don't mean it like there are some hardcore IU fans that will watch every basketball game, every football game, all of that. I mean, there are so many IU basketball fans that are in football mode right now, and good for you because Rose Bowl, Peach Bowl, about to be national championship. Good. That's not us. We pay attention to both. And there are fans that are going to have their first game that they pay attention to be the first home game back, which is Purdue. Now, if they happen to lose to Iowa and Michigan and Rutgers, will the energy be there for Purdue? Maybe. It's still a rivalry game. They'll bring the team out. That'll be awesome. But they also lost to Rutgers and Iowa and Michigan. If you win two of those games leading up to Purdue, you can maybe suit yourself up for a very, very fun Tuesday night at 9 p.m., which is already bad. You set yourself up, and even if you only get one of them, and it is Iowa, and that's the first game that people really start paying attention to because it's the first home one back, you can maybe get people to start buying in again if you get one or two of these next ones before your rival. Which, by the way, they didn't look very good against Iowa yesterday. So
Purdue hasn't looked as polished as I expected Purdue to be this year. Um, Now, granted, they're still one of the top teams in the country, but not to that, number one team standard that I expected them to be. Yeah, Tuesday night at 9 p.m. is a terribly unfortunate draw for that game because Purdue got their home game for Indiana on like a Friday night at 7 or 8 or something like that.
It is a Friday at 8. The thing about Purdue's schedule is interesting is they go to a road trip next, so USC and UCLA. Then they get Illinois at home, and then it's Indiana. So is there maybe, obviously it's Matt Painter, you never know. Is there a lack of preparation for Indiana because you're coming off such a road test and then you get Illinois? Like with Indiana, you get Michigan, but then you also get Rutgers, then Purdue. So maybe you have a little bit more time to scout them out, get fired up for that game than maybe Purdue does coming off the back of a West Coast trip and then having to play a good Illinois team at home.
I don't know. I do know that it's not going to get easier for Indiana. And with the momentum going the way that it is, I like to be optimistic. I do, but it's very tough at this time because you look at the gauntlet of the Big Ten, you look at the way this Indiana team is playing, and it just does not look promising. Um, are UCLA and USC the best teams ever? No, but you have to travel across the country to go play those teams. And that comes after the stretch of what we just talked about with Rutgers, Michigan, Iowa, Purdue, not in that order. It's just, and then after that, you come back to more ranked games, more of the same, whatever. If this team doesn't get it under control and start finding its rhythm offensively from somebody other than Lamar Wilkerson, preferably multiple people other than Lamar Wilkerson, it may not look pretty by the end of that stretch. But there is still plenty of time to get adjusted. It's just a matter of will they? And as of right now, I think it'll be tough.
Only time will tell, and we'll find out on Saturday. You won't be there. You'll be down in Miami for the national championship. I'll be there. I'm excited to see what the energy's like. Are there going to be a bunch of fans there? Is it going to be a nuts environment? Are people already in national championship mode? And how does the team respond to back-to-back frustrating losses? They've played pretty well on their home floor this year. They get a chance against a pretty good Iowa team, and they're pretty well coached under Ben McCollum. They look good. I believe it was last night against Purdue. This is a big test. That this is important because if not, you're on a three-game skid going into Michigan, who does not look like a team that I would want to play at all.
I'm going to pose you a question, not how many do you think to feel comfortable, but of the next four, how many do you think Indiana will win?
Confidently two. Confidently two. Optimistically three. But also becomes the point of the way they've been playing it recently. I don't know if they beat Purdue at home. It's going to be a big game, big atmosphere. The way they've been playing, can't say they do. But then can I say they beat Iowa? Who knows? So realistically, two. I think if they end up getting Iowa and getting Rutgers, they could probably have a pretty good shot at knocking off Purdue as well.
I'm going to say yes for the Rutgers game because that team is just not up to the level that it should be. Iowa's a toss-up, and Michigan and Purdue are both losses for me. I don't know about Iowa. I really don't. Part of me wants to say 1 out of 4. Part of me also wants to give them that Iowa game in hopes that it's a bounce back home game in a decent environment, but I don't know what that environment will look like.
Is Iowa the most intriguing game of the four?
I do think so, yeah.
I think so too. I think you're going to find out a lot about the team, and you're going to find out a lot about how the rest of the season is going to go against a team that has been playing pretty well. I think this is the most intriguing and interesting matchup of the four, including against your rival who's ranked in the top five.
I think Iowa and Indiana are extremely similar, just in team build and situation in everything. First year, new head coach, fully rebuilding the roster. It's kind of mid-tier in the Big Ten right now, still figuring things out. Lots of shooting, lots of fast-paced play. Both coaches from Drake. Um, both have players who were stars at Drake in the Missouri Valley. It's very interesting. Um, and they are different in their own ways too. I think that game is as close to a coin flip as there is because I do think Iowa's the better team right now, but the home environment for Indiana does out like weigh that out a little bit.
They've got very similar resumes too. Iowa's also 0-4 against quad one teams. I think they're 2-1 against quad two teams. Their only loss being Minnesota. So I'm intrigued. I know I say that word a lot. I've been told I say that word a lot, but I truly am intrigued in how that matchup goes. I think it tells you a lot, and we keep saying it and saying it. Only time will tell, but that is a big checkpoint marker is on Saturday of where it's fork in the road. This way, get it back on track. This way, you go down a very, very dark road that may lead to a few more consecutive losses in a row.
On that very bright, happy note, we'll start to wrap things up on the House of Hoosier. It's a four-game stretch that could be pivotal for Indiana's season. Iowa, Rutgers, Michigan, Purdue, and we'll have you covered with content throughout that four-game stretch. As of right now, it's back-to-back losses to top 25 teams, both disappointing in the second half, Nebraska and Michigan State. Indiana now 12 and 5, 0 and 4 in quad one, 1 and 3, or I should say 3 and 3 in the Big Ten. Still haven't really proven anything yet to prove that they're a tournament team, and that stretch upcoming is what we're taking a look at. So we'll wrap up another one of the House of Hoosier for Noah Gerkey.